Hi, welcome to our next video in Module 2. Now that we've identified the priority data points that will serve as the basis for our annual student outcome goals, including our Closing the Gap goal, our next task will be to begin writing our goals in SMART goal format. As you recall, annual student outcome goals are centered around outcome data, and outcome data is achievement, attendance, and discipline data. Student outcome goals are written in SMART format. They are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. There are a few things to consider before writing your goals in SMART goal format. Decide if you're going to focus on one group or the school as a whole. If you're focusing on discipline referrals, for example, and you're working with only students referred for bullying behavior, you probably don't want to include all discipline referrals in your goal. If you can't, or if it's difficult to collect outcome data for your goal, consider looking at a different goal. For instance, having students complete a career assessment may be a strategy you want your counseling program to focus on, and you may be tempted to make this into an annual student outcome goal for your counseling program. But in and of itself, the activity of students completing the career assessment is not targeting attendance, achievement, or discipline data, so it can't serve as a goal. Completing a career assessment is one strategy of a larger purpose, helping students be prepared to reach their career interests, and one of the ways school counselors can do that is to ultimately help students be prepared for the appropriate high school course of study. So, for example, with middle school, an academic outcome goal could be used here, such as increasing the number of students passing all courses, with the career assessment being one activity of a bigger plan. So often we want to start with strategies, such as having students complete a career interest assessment or to teach stress reduction strategies, for example. But remember, we want to be intentional and strategic in our work. And the way to do that is to flip things around and start with creating goals based on student needs we know exist because of what the data tell us. Strategies will then come later and will be targeted to our goal and its root cause. If you're accustomed to using perception data from a needs assessment or survey for the basis of your program's goals, for example, wanting to decrease the number of students who said in a survey that they're experiencing a high level of stress, ask yourself instead, how might stress be impacting students' achievement, attendance, or discipline? Look at your school's data. Is this self-reported stress impacting students' success at school? Are students missing class or chronically absent? Are achievement or benchmark test results low? Do students have incomplete or missing assignments? Are they not passing classes? Are there discipline referrals resulting from behavior issues, outbursts in the classrooms, for example? The survey results may help inform the reasons or root causes for these achievement, attendance, or discipline outcomes, but your goal should focus on the resulting impact on achievement, attendance, or discipline. The survey results, or the reason or root cause, will later help us design the most appropriate interventions or strategies, such as stress reduction techniques. But at the moment, we're focusing on just developing the outcome goals themselves. Another important point to remember when setting goals, it's often easy to fall into thinking big, that we need to move the needle on big things, like our state achievement test scores or our overall school attendance rate. But really, if we want to make an impact, it's best to start with a more targeted approach, zeroing in on smaller, more achievable goals. We're in this for the long haul, and big changes don't occur overnight. In fact, that's why so often school reform or improvement movements get discarded or abandoned. When things don't change or improve immediately, people lose interest or give up. Think of this process instead as chipping away at the bigger issues by strategically targeting key pieces of the issue and where we'll see some success that will keep everyone motivated to keep working. Now that we've pinpointed 2 data points, one of which targets a gap group of students in the last task we completed, We know who and what we want to target. For example, we might have a large number of our second grade students who don't meet benchmark on DIBELS, and we notice that there's a larger number of our economically disadvantaged fifth grade students who have 10 or more excused absences as compared to all the other students. Now we need to begin converting these data points into our student outcome goals in SMART goal format. Again, if you wish to have more than 2 annual student outcome goals, but no more than 4, you may do so. Remember, SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. Your goal statement should be clear and concise and centered around achievement, attendance, or discipline outcome data. They don't include strategies, activities, or any other information. We'll do the very same steps for all of your goals, including your second closing the gap goal. You will also need to do the same for each additional goal if you've chosen to include more than 2. So let's get started. On step 1, you'll identify your targeted timeline. When do you plan to see if you've met your goal? It may be by the end of the school year or a specific semester or grading period, for example. Step 2, identify your targeted group. Which students are you hoping to impact? Be specific. Is it all students of a specific grade level, or students who aren't passing a specific assessment, or with a certain type of discipline referral, for example? Do we want to see an increase in something? This would be step 3. Or a decrease. For example, an increase in the number of students who are passing 8th grade algebra, or a decrease in the number of students who are sent for in-school suspension or classroom behavior. It's easiest to stick with increasing or decreasing the number of students who. For example, if you're wanting to see an improvement in test scores, remember that you're targeting the number of students with improved test scores, not the test scores themselves. In other words, your goal would be increasing the number of students who pass the state exam or the number of students whose scores improve, but not increasing the scores themselves. Next, in step 4, we will fill in our baseline data and our target data. Our baseline is wherever we're starting. So if our data point that served as the basis for our goal showed that we have 47% of our 8th grade students who are not passing the state standardized math assessment, our baseline is 47%. We'd like to see a decrease, so our target data, what we're aiming for or hope to achieve, will be reducing that down to 35%. Aim a little higher than you think you can reach. Goals that are too easy don't provide much motivation to work on them. But aiming too high can make your goal overwhelming and easy to give up on. Use your best judgment for choosing your target and the amount of change you hope to achieve. And remember that a small percentage of change can have a significant impact. The percent change from your baseline to your target is automatically calculated here once you enter your baseline and your target numbers or percentages. So in our example, reducing the percentage of 8th grade students who are failing the state standardized math test from 47% to 35% of 8th graders calculates to a 26% decrease, which is pretty impactful. Remember that a percent change is not a simple subtraction problem. But don't worry, as long as you enter your baseline data and your target data, we calculate the percent change for you. Here's another example using the data I've selected for my closing the gap goal. In digging into my data, I realized that among the students who were chronically absent, a larger number of these students who were in 6th grade and were also economically disadvantaged. So my closing the gap goal seeks to reduce the number of economically disadvantaged 6th graders who have 10 or more absences in a semester. Notice that in this goal, I'm targeting a number of students instead of a percentage like I did in my first goal. You can choose to use either percentages of students or number of students, but just be sure that whichever measure you choose stays the same for your baseline and your target. I've also chosen a shorter time frame for this goal. My end date will be at the end of the next semester. If you have ASCA's implementation guide, you can also find examples broken down by school level in the chapter on annual student outcome goals. You'll be able to take a look at your SMART goals once you create them. Review the SMART goals by clicking on the report icon. Here's my sample report with the 2 examples of annual student outcome goals that I've created in SMART goal format. Your tasks to complete now are to create your annual student outcome goals written in SMART goal format, making sure that one of the goals is also a closing the gap goal. Thanks for watching. In our next video, we'll begin to create a plan for our annual student outcome goals. As always, we're available for individual support through email, phone, text, or by Zoom. If you need support, just reach out by calling, emailing, or texting me at kelly@inspiresuccess.org.